We'll go ahead and call the Finance Committee meeting to order. Would you take the roll, please?
Alderman Peccarelli.
Here.
Alderwoman Day. Here. Alderman Craig.
Here.
Dennis.
Yes.
Sarah.
Here.
Okay, you join me, please. Pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on our agenda is the citizens' comment period. I don't know if we have anybody here that's making comments other than for the budget review. Seeing none, I'll go ahead and close that. Then we'll move right on to item 3. And that is a continuation or ongoing discussion, if you will, of the 2025 mayor's recommended budget. And I think we are starting with,
The library.
is it library first?
Yes.
I see on the agenda, yes. Okay. And that is page, I saw
164.
160. Dan, do you have anything you want to say specifically, or?
So I have nothing to start, but we do have a couple members from the library board here that
Okay.
are going to.
If you want to come on up and join us, grab a chair, table, and you can give us the overview. The floor is yours.
My name is Maria Imp. I'm actually the president of the Franklin Public Library Board of Trustees. This is Carrie and Whitmore.
Whitmore?
I knew her before she was a
For
Whitmore,
almost
so I'm like,
15
oh,
years.
just quick catch myself. She's actually the assistant library director. I can't remember the rest of your title, but Jennifer is out of town, so Carrie's here in her place, and then Alan Alexandrovich is another board member, and he is the treasurer on the library board currently. So I know this is a hard time for all of us, and we appreciate the work you guys do as a finance committee and everything that goes into that for our entire community. Our library board is made up of Franklin residents, so we benefit from the whole budget process as well. The library has always attempted to be good stewards of the money that come from the city. And Jennifer every year gives a report to the common council, but I don't think that this group always hears that report. So just some things that the library provides the community of Franklin with, that we had over 115,000 people visit the Franklin Library as of the end of August of 2024 alone. That is up almost 10,000 from last year. We circulate, at the end of August, we have already circulated over 260,000 items, and that is up 20,000 items from last year. New cards issued to members of our community have been this year, up till August, over 1,000. Our meeting rooms are heavily used. And our meeting rooms have been, is that the number of times the rooms have been used? Meeting room bookings?
Yes, that's the booking.
1,225 times our meeting rooms have been booked by different groups. So we also, are given, and for those of you that haven't served on the finance committee before, the state statutes regarding the library budget and how it is spent is a little different, I believe, than the rest of the whole city. So if anybody has questions about that, they can ask that, afterwards. But we do then make adjustments to our own budget as necessary. During my time as a trustee, as I've been on the board for more than 6 years now, we have spent thousands and thousands of dollars from our own budget on building maintenance. And the building is over 20 years old. It is owned by owned by the city. Yes. But we have done thousands of dollars, including one year I remember over $50,000 on our HVAC system alone in 1 year. 10 years ago, our materials budget, and that is line item, it's on the second page, 5816, fourth from the bottom. 10 years ago, we had a materials budget of $140,000, and as you can see, our budget is now down to $91,000, despite inflation and everything. The library has always absorbed that progress to market increase. We aren't funded for that, but we've always, found a way to absorb that and rearrange things. We have, in 2023, over 1,600 volunteer hours. So our volunteers are contributing to the success of the library as well. We still have furniture in the library that is there since the beginning, for 22 years. Original furniture. So that's something we deal with, things in our building that are that old. We have a security measure in the library. Each of our items has a security tag in it. It'll buzz when you go out or ding or whatever. That system is from 2005, and it can no longer be updated. It doesn't even have the capacity for the latest updates. So we really do try to make do with what we have and get the most out of what we have. And so we do thank you for, the city's contribution to the library and everything we do. But we do see some issues with this year's budget. I'm going to let Alan ask some questions and make some comments about it. So,
Am I up to bat?
You're up to bat.
Okay. We know that the city gives the raises to our employees because although they work for the library, they are city employees. So the raises are going through for 2025, but there was no funding for that. We didn't get any increased dollars. So this is something that we've got to take out of operation, change something. Hopefully not reduce staff. So my concern is we're spending down our fund balance. And I know that was talked about in meetings for a while now, that the city wants us to spend down that fund balance. And it's come down from 2019 almost $200,000. But we have a floor of $100,000 that we can't go below. What's going to happen when we hit that floor? Because it looks like in 2025 we may hit that floor. So what is the city going to do to help us with that? Because it's better stop buying books. It's
that floor was set by the city. That amount, and
yeah.
I was going to ask that.
And I couldn't find the document. I don't know what it was even called, a policy, I can't remember the title of it. I can picture it in my mind because we looked at it last year. A statement on city letterhead that says that our fund balance may not go under $100,000, and so we're looking at that in 2025 with this budget that wasn't. We were not given an increase in the budget, and we also were not given landfill siting fees, which we have always known we're not, they weren't a given. You know, we knew those are always something that we may or may not have. So, but in addition to not getting an increase, there were no additional citing fees that were given, and but we still have to pay city mandated increase.
And that's one that the city's hitting us with, but I think we all know that inflation is not going away, and so our costs are going to be continuing to go up. And we do fundraising events and work with the foundation to get money in, but there's only so much you can do there. So
And that doesn't go to.
No, and that can't go to payroll either. So we would really appreciate anything you could do to help us.
And Carrie has just some things that are like real world, like what will happen at the library with this budget in 25.
So again, I'm Carrie Whitmore. I'm the assistant director at the library, and I just wanted to start off with the fact that we're doing a strategic plan currently for the next 5 years, starting in 2025. And we have done some community conversations, and we've had a survey. And I just wanted to highlight to you some of the things that we've heard from the citizens of Franklin about the library. The library is a place where I find comfort and peace, bring my grandchildren, learn and experience new classes, expand my knowledge, keep up on current events. And then the next three things I'm going to say were actual comments that patrons and community members gave on our survey about how they see the library benefiting them in the next 5 years. My life is made richer through reading, and I could not possibly afford to do this without the library. It is one of my favorite services offered by our government. I look to FPL to keep me up to date on newest bestsellers. I enjoy having municipal documents like the budget and city history available. I also use meeting rooms 3 to 4 times a year for service groups I'm involved with. I'm always proud to bring people to our library. The library is a wonderful space. I participate in the yoga programs and love to read. Whether I check out books or read at the library, I feel connected to my community. These are just a small portion of the positive pieces of feedback we received from community members during that recent community conversation and survey. The Franklin community relies on the library not only for the materials, but as a community space where they can gather and have informal or formal meetings, learn a new skill, enjoy a speaker on current events, history, or information on important services that they may be eligible for. Over and over again, we've heard that the library is a treasure to the Franklin community, and its staff is knowledgeable, helpful, and top-notch. With this budget proposal, we see a cut in total funding, which will mean a cut in what the library can provide to our community. We cannot adequately pay our current staff with this proposed budget. This will mean, most likely, some cuts, which could also require a cut in hours open. As outlined in the program description in the proposed budget, which I hope you guys have had a chance to look at, Jennifer does outline a lot of what I'm saying here, but fleshes it out. We have strived to increase our open hours over the last 5 years, and we want to be able to meet the community where they're at and provide the best hours of service to meet their needs. And it would be a shame if we would have to decrease our hours for the community. As Maria said, our physical circulation is up 20,000 over 2023, and that's just through August, right?
Yep.
That's a lot. That increase requires staff, and it requires check-in, check-out, shelving. A cut in budget may mean a cut in materials spending as well. Our community often comments on our collections, and they are our bread and butter. And not only that, if we have less materials, and this can be confusing, the reciprocal borrowing in Milwaukee County, if we have less materials in our library, Franklin patrons can get them from other libraries, but that also means that we pay for that. We will not get the revenue from the county that we have been getting, because we send out a lot of materials, at least 4,000 every month to other libraries.
Is that $4,000 or
4,000 items. Mm-hmm.
Typical borrowing generates about 50,000.
Can you explain what that is a little bit? How you receive that?
How we receive it? It's, well, number one, it's never a given, because what it is dependent on is if Franklin lends out, let's say, 50,000 materials, items. But let's say Franklin residents get 65,000 items from other libraries. So we are, like 15,000 items in the whole, and we are charged for those items. Because we lent out 50, but our patrons checked out 65. So that's how it works. There is a rather complex type of formula to figure all the money part out, but that's the very high level,
So
Is that a monthly settlement? I know we've had discussion about this in the
No.
past.
The 50,000?
No, the financial, is that,
No, it's a strange system. We will be given a lump sum payment in February, I believe, that gets posted to
They
to
post back.
2024.
But
Yeah.
then we have to amend the budget every
Yes,
February.
every year we amend the budget. Yeah,
so it's an annual settlement?
it's an annual. Yeah. And it's materials dependent, and you never know year to year where we have really expanded like our foreign language materials, and just a lot of other items. And so I think our library tends to lend out more. But if we don't have the money to do that, we won't have those materials lent out. I think you said.
Yep, and then the other thing we hear all the time is that patrons love our programming. Our library offers a large amount of programming for the staff that we have. Most of our programming, we do registration, it fills up almost immediately, and that it doesn't matter if that's adult, teen, or children's. It's across the board. It would be very hard not to cut that programming with a cut in the budget. Even if we do it bare bones, it's still pretty hard to work on to provide quality programming to our community without the proper funding. So we just ask that you consider the community of Franklin when considering this proposed budget and how these cuts will affect the library access and the level to which they have become accustomed to what the library provides. Not only in the form of materials, but as a place to meet up with friends, connect with others, and engage with knowledge in all forms. Thank you. And if you have any questions, we will do our
And
best to answer.
just as a final comment, I do know that when this budget came out, our last board meeting was last Monday, the 29th or 30th of September. And at that meeting, our alderperson told us that we could contact the mayor to ask some questions or work through this. And Jennifer contacted him multiple times and did not receive a response. She went out of town Friday morning, but as of Thursday at the end of the day, hadn't gotten a response to her request to him. So, I don't know if some of this maybe you would have talked through with him. Yes.
Sorry, just a couple of points of clarification. You had mentioned that there's over 1,000 bookings, meeting rooms. May I ask if that's in a calendar year or what duration?
That was from January to August of 2024.
So of this year, current year.
And city gets top priority. and they're not charged, but if any city committee or organization needs a room to meet, they get it. Yeah.
How many rooms are there?
So there's one very large meeting room that can be split into two. And then there's a conference room, which only holds about 12 people.
Okay.
And that would be all of we have some large study rooms that groups
are
use
booked.
all the time that are free. They hold up to 12 or 15 people.
But the bookings would only include like the big room or the.
Right, that does not include the study rooms, which I do have to say are very, very.
And you had also mentioned you have over 1,600 hours of volunteer hours. Can I ask, does that include any high school early release, like internships?
It does, yes.
Okay.
So we do have a lot of National Honor Society kids who will contact us for their hours. Usually that's at certain points in the year, and a lot of times it happens to be in April and May. But yeah, they do contact us for that.
So that's more event focused though than actually like.
You're talking about that program that the high school has.
Yeah, like
a
where you can
permanent
learn more about
right.
a career in.
Right.
We have not had from Franklin High School, but we do work with Goodwill Industries.
Okay.
And have had like that type of program with them. Had a number of people who have gone through that program with us at the library.
And I do know Jennifer has been in contact with the person at the high school and just hasn't worked anything out yet, but I do know that she has been in contact.
Thank you.
Question, go ahead.
I've noticed the line item for the Mickless computer dropped significantly. Is there, what's the reason behind that?
Oh, do you know? Because otherwise, yeah.
I do, but
Which-
where is
which
the line item?
do you-
Which number?
Services and charges 15,011 450.
5451. Okay, so Mickless is like restructuring. Mickless provides the system. Mickless is Milwaukee County Federated Library System, and they provide the member libraries with certain services. And sometimes they provide us with computer services. So in 2025, they're taking something else away from us, and I can't remember what it is because it was a very recent announcement. But they're giving us more computer services.
They're picking
Something
up
like
that cost.
No,
That's
Yeah.
one they took away.
they're taking.
That's the one they're taking? Okay.
Yeah. And that's not even,
That's
we
not
haven't
even in
even,
there.
that was after this.
Yeah, but there was something else that
There was something else. So they
there
may
is.
be picking up a maintenance.
I can't remember.
Would you
now,
like
I'm
me to
really
get that
sorry.
information?
If you could, because
Yes.
when
Okay.
you look back historically from
Exactly.
22 to 24, it steadily rises, and then all of a sudden it just cuts in half, more than half.
Right.
And that's why
Okay.
it
Yeah.
just kind of jumps out at me of like, so what's the story behind it?
Right.
And then
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Isn't
they're-
that your main operating software also from Milwaukee County?
it would be our ILS, which is our, yeah, it would be.
I see
But
that
I
you-
don't think we. That's just like in a maintenance.
Yeah.
That would be in here.
I seem to remember that when it was coming on board, Milwaukee County was there's allocation out to the
Right.
member libraries, and again, another thing, well, how do we come up and pay for this? Or,
I may not be able to get back to you until Jennifer gets back, which will be next week. So.
Any other questions? I had one just on interest expense. Is that basically, or excuse me, interest income for your earnings? Is that basically just your fund balance?
Interest earnings, that is not our fund balance.
Or it's more than the fund balance.
Yeah.
Because I think the money that we get, I don't know how it's calculated, but I'm sure.
It's typically, a percentage of fund balance.
Oh,
But
So
That's
I
what-
take the
okay.
does the
fund
fund balance also include the monies that, like, we 1.4 million a year that we get? Is that part of that calculation?
Yes.
That's what.
I just saw it going up, and I don't know if you were part of that calculation. I know that they set their own line items, but I just saw it going up. I know that fund balance is going down as well as the rate, so that was really.
In
The way that I based
2023
that off of
activity
was-
was 48, and 2024 is 60. But I did see it on 2025 versus department versus mayor recommend.
Yeah. So it looks like it did get increased, but
I think that's more a function of interest rates than balance. So.
and maybe the way the donations come in.
The timing, also the ending fund balance from 2020 to 2024, how I come up with that 25 number. And I did all the interest projections at 3.5 this year. Not that I can't adjust that, but that was.
Rate of return.
Yes,
5 on it.
yeah. So I just did all the interest at 3.5.
I have a couple.
Yes, go ahead, John.
So on the under contractual services, the last one, it's $52.99. It has contractors, and you have 39,000. What are the contractors that are?
Which,
That would be dust free. That would be our cleaning service. Be one of them. That's would that be?
well,
I
what
guess-
is it monthly for dust?
3,150.
The only thing I have in here that Jennifer put in is that's just the total dust-free cleaning.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
okay.
And then the other item, I had the question on the computer one, but we already had that one. And then the other was under computer equipment.
Yes.
There's 40,000 now that's in there.
Yes.
What is?
That's the
That's
RFID.
the RFID. That's our security system that is out of date and we cannot
that's what-
update it.
So it's the purchase of that. And is this the equipment that does the scanning when you walk in and out, and the actual computers piece of it?
It's the self checkouts
It's this-
and the gates.
the gates, yeah, those. the
But-
trackers.
And the RFID, like the pads
Okay.
that
You know how you lay a book
Yeah,
down?
that read it.
Yep.
Yes.
But these little tags are not
No,
part of that
it's not part of
cost,
that,
and
no.
they're.
I think
need
that's
to go
an
in every-
operating.
That's an operating thing,
Mhm.
so.
And so then those will have to be
So-
put. Not only do you got to put this in, but then you got to go and put it in all
With
of
the
the.
tags, yeah, and I don't know if the new system are gonna be able to handle these. or if
Yeah,
they'll
they
have to-
should. I believe.
Yeah, the old tag, like, we're not gonna have to
Right.
go through every item and put in a new tag, but as we purchase items, they
Yes.
need these, but that comes under.
Yeah.
So, but that's what
That's what- yeah.
that's where the increase comes from.
Yeah.
We can't, they can't even be updated.
Yeah.
Anymore, so.
And that too, that's literally that 40,000 is just for the RFID. We do have computers, that staff computers, other computers in the library that need replacement, but that is not included.
Yeah.
And so this is based on like a quote, like you know.
We've had a couple,
Yes.
we've already, had our 3 quotes. So
Okay.
we're
All right.
in the
A
process.
solid number, yes.
Sounds good.
Danielle, this is a question maybe for, or I'm sorry, John, did you have additional?
I had one
Go
last
ahead.
one, and then you can go. Under subscriptions,
Mhm.
that one went for this year to 33, and in the past it's been like around 18 or something like that, 18,000.
Okay, that one. Okay. We Nicholas, the
Yeah.
county system,
Yep.
has up until this point provided member libraries with a service called Hoopla. You can get movies. Audiobooks,
Oh,
all
Music.
music.
Yeah.
I mean, and it is heavily used, very popular. And that is one of the things that Nicholas dropped and I believe it is like $22,000 a year.
They also increased their prices
Right.
by a lot.
Right. So Franklin decided for this year to continue with, again, it's a little complicated because you can buy you can allow people to check out, you have 4 checkouts a month on Hoopla, right? Well, we could drop that to 3 or 2, and the board will be discussing a change like that. But this would be like the paying for what we have now,
Okay.
the service that we have now.
Which might be part of the dollar difference.
It is a big part
Right.
of the dollar difference on the
That's
the Midwest.
right.
Mhm.
Yeah. Now that
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's it.
One final question.
Yes, go ahead.
May I ask, does this include any of the function?
And I have a
Maybe just before Dan, is the building part of the BCI
Yes.
umbrella
Mhm.
Yep.
of the library building? Because I know maintenance has always come up in kind of
Yes.
a
touchy subject on
Yeah.
who provides.
The unknown, right?
Yes.
I
Right.
remember having.
well, and
this
it's
discussion last
somewhat outside the normal day-to-day operations of the library. And I've always thought, well, it's kind of awkward situation to be having them trying to figure out which AC, equipment to buy or whatever the case may be. In terms of, when the city has overall assets that we are maintaining, updating, doing whatever. So I just wanted to know if that was.
Is. I know for sure the chiller is included. I know.
Yeah. So it's LED lights. Those are going to be installed soon. The chiller is supposed to be installed in November. And we're also supposed to be getting solar panels.
So yeah, those were the. So yes, those are included.
All right, super.
The couple of questions I had is more about funding. When you guys do your programming, do you charge for any of your programming?
Some. So in our policies, one of our policies as a library, we do not charge for programming. It is free and open to the public. However, because we do a ton of craft programs, kids do too, but their supplies are construction paper. The adult programming that I do and that one of our amazing volunteers does, it's more costly. We also do cooking programs. And so we do charge a $5 supply fee for each of those programs. Those are the only programs we charge for, because we can't really charge a supply fee for yoga, which if we take yoga away, you will hear about it.
Uprising.
So has the library board considered changing the policy to implement programming fees?
I think the issue, and this is, I'm speaking for myself as a board member, the idea of a public library is we're not renting movies. We're not a video, DVD rental facility. We are not renting books. We are a free, it is a public library. And to be accessible to as many members of our community as possible, we need to remain free. Now, our programs are free, but, when it costs Carrie, I don't know how many hundreds of dollars to buy enough cooking supplies for her, then we charge for the supplies, but not for the programs.
That is a barrier for some people already, and it kind of stinks. But
Yeah.
if I didn't charge for it, we wouldn't be able to do it.
Right. What about the meeting room rentals? Is that a fee that you guys have increased over time?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. But obviously not to the city. But yes, we have a lot of condominium associations that use our rooms on a monthly basis or however often they do. And so we have done slight. Yeah, we are not like a public library is not a revenue generating thing. It is a service to our community, lets us know how much they.
I had some experience fundraising, and I noticed when we went on lockdown COVID, a lot of entities that used to donate only donate to 501c3s now. And I'm wondering with the library status or with that foundation, if there's any way to increase. I mean, Sendex, Quick Trip, Kroger, like the Target even will only do 501c3.
And I will say that, like, I'm not sure about the foundation, but every summer, every January, so it's coming up for me, I send out letters to all of those places just asking for a $25 gift card for the summer reading program. That really helps out. And I actually do get a pretty good response. I'm not sure if the foundation's explored, like, grant writing or anything like that.
Or even getting the donations through the
Sure.
I mean, through the foundation.
But the foundation can't pay for staffing.
Right, but
You know.
it might be able to help out with something else.
Right. They are
And they
doing
do a lot.
fundraisers. They are. We just had a big fundraiser with John Gerda. That was really wonderful and very successful. Doing a holiday rummage sale. So they are definitely working their butts off to help us out.
John or Mayor Kelly have any comments with the library?
I apologize. I was at the opening for the pickleball courts,
Oh,
and it was a packed house, and it's a wonderful thing. So, and I don't want to regurgitate everything that you guys started at. Were you the first ones up?
yes.
Ooh. I guess I'll just brief with Danielle when this is over. If there's anything that was correctly.
Listen to the audience.
No,
Oh.
no. There are plenty that sit at home and do that, but no. I'm going to go with Danielle and her tutelage.
All right, anything else anyone has related to the library? Yeah, it's a unique situation, as you said. You kind of get a pot of money and deal with it. And I know over the years that's been asked to do many different things. We understand kind of the scenario. Well, thank you much for coming in tonight.
Yeah, can I make one
Sharing.
final comment?
Sure.
I was visiting with a library director from another municipality. And this is just a general comment about this whole process, just some feedback. But in their community, the department heads submit their budget requests mid-year, July, whatever. And then the department heads meet one-on-one with like the mayor and the administrator, and they have a chance to give feedback about what their requests are, and they work with the city to build their budget prior to the mayor's budget coming out. So it's a more, you work to build it together before and not like react to it afterwards. So I don't know if that would be something that would be helpful in this community to do that type of process. But it just seems like every year for the past several years that I've been on the board, it's we make the request, we get the budget, then we backpedal to figure things out. Whereas, if we had a chance to do this prior to the budget coming out and working to build that and understanding where the city's coming from, and that would be helpful to us.
Well, we're open to anything that could streamline or make it more
Yeah.
efficient. So we're open to that.
Great.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All righty.
Thank you.
It looks like we've got some of the capital funds and so forth talking about. Is that next on the order?
Yes, however, I think I'm going to request that we go over capital outlay on Wednesday. I ran into a couple things today that actually look like we may have a little bit of additional revenue, and so I'd like to have a meeting with Kelly and the mayor to go over some some options that we can present on Wednesday.
Okay.
So we can jump to equipment replacement.
I was gonna say, that's the better way to be.
So the equipment replacement fund.
Danielle, in the process of the library, they're not part of one of the department heads that you normally sit down with them putting the operating together. That is their autonomous status.
Correct.
I was kind of listening to that commentary.
I will say last year, the three of us had a chance to actually go to the library board meeting and discuss budgetary items with them. However, with the change this year of not knowing what the potential levy could be at this moment, I think the discussion between the mayor and I was, let's know a more finalized levy number that we can provide to them before having that department head meeting.
Absolutely. Because they would have asked all these direct questions and tried to pin us down, and we don't have accurate numbers. I just think this is the process that we have to fulfill.
We understand what their operational needs are and what that looks like, but until we're able to determine what the needs are and then what the city can provide, I just think that was our leaning on that.
Okay.
Okay, so the equipment replacement fund, Fund 42, funding typically comprises of landfill siding revenue, proceeds from retired equipment sales, and then investment earnings. So you'll see that this year the projected landfill siding revenue is $530,000. Of the total amount, we have $55,000 in projected interest income, and then $20,000 is a rough estimate for property sale. Going through last year's amended budget, TID 4 closed, and the Common Council approved $650,000 to be applied to the equipment replacement fund, and then the remaining go to the street improvement fund of that TID closure revenue. So in this case, we decided to take a little bit of the additional income that we got last year and apply it to some equipment this year. I'm sorry, in 23, apply it to 25. So when the mayor and I and Kelly sat down and discussed what equipment was needed, obviously there's a lot of wants and a lot of asks and only enough money to provide that. I know the mayor had reached out to some of the department heads to determine what their needs were and their priorities. And so in this budget, we have about $1.8 million to be spent. It looks like the Public Works Department is recommending a skid steer replacement, 2 new dump trucks, and a street sweeper, and an aerial bucket truck. And then the fire department is looking to get a remount of their ambulance. So, Fire Chief, I don't know if you want to speak to the remount at all.
Sure, I can keep it real brief. We have 4 paramedic ambulances in the city. 3 of them are frontline, which means they're on duty every day at the 3 fire stations. And 1 of them serves as a reserve. We typically rotate them, where we purchase one basically every 2 years. So we never have one that's more than 8 years old. Currently, our fleet, almost all of them have over 100,000 miles on, even the unit that was purchased in 2019. So with our increase in call activity, it's really important that we stay on that schedule to have reliable pieces of equipment. Like Danielle mentioned, this one's a remount, so it's taken the box patient care module from one of our current ambulances. That's a 2015 vintage, going right back to where it was built in Iowa. They're going to take that module off, put it on a brand new 2025 Ford chassis, repaint it, refurbish it. Comes back to us in a as new ambulance with a savings of about $100,000. And all of our fleet is built by the same company, Lifeline Ambulances. So we're in a position where every 2 years we'd be able to do this. Again, seeing the benefit of basically a new vehicle for cost savings of at least $100,000. But for us, it was really important that stayed on schedule, just because we don't want to get behind. Because as soon as we would get behind, like we were kind of catching up now, we just took delivery of one that was ordered 2 years ago, we get too much further behind, we're going to be in a position where we have to buy multiple units the same year. That's probably not where we want to be. Finance folks, they like a steady projection.
So, that timeline, if that were to be ordered in 2025, would it be delivered in 2027? Is that like a 24-month?
With this should go faster. We're already on their list to have this work done. Our plan would be as soon as the budget would be approved to try to get it out there early in 2025 and hopefully get it by the end of the year. Kind of getting back onto that more normal schedule again.
I was gonna ask what the lead time, if that has come down any, post-COVID here, or it continues to be extended.
The fire apparatus are still a long timeline, still looking at about 40 months, to the point, and that was, when I'm looking at our projections, at least for fire, we have a couple of heavy lifts coming up with some of our heavy apparatus in 2026, 2027, kind of that time frame, and that's what we're looking at is like to place an order. It's going to take 3 to 4 years to get that piece of apparatus delivered to us. So that's probably irrelevant for the discussion now, but it's kind of, we've been working with Danielle and city administration and the mayor to come up with a plan of how we handle that the next few years.
Because I think even out of the equipment replacement fund, Public Works is severely behind on almost all of their equipment. We just come up with funding challenges every year because the only funding we have in here is landfill siting revenue. So it's going to be a matter of, do we start borrowing to place the needs or lower the needs to get us back onto a better schedule of replacing our equipment? So we have equipment that should have been replaced in the last 3 to 5, 7 years that just hasn't hit because that equipment is getting more expensive and more expensive. Don't have the funding. So that being said, like I said, we took some of that TIC closure revenue and are getting a few extra pieces of equipment in 2025, but we're going to go right back to the challenge in 2026. So unless you guys have any questions on this piece.
Anybody have questions on equipment placement? I mean, when we instituted this, I think it gave us a kind of look at all the assets that we have, like to determine whether the city really needs them or doesn't. I mean, some of them are kind of no-brainers, if you will, snowplow trucks, cars, et cetera, et cetera. Stuff is rolling over, you can see it on your time, but as Danielle iterated, challenge funding. And we have the benefit of landfill siting, which don't. So our brethren communities are either borrowing, upping tax rates, or combination of both, or what have you. All right, let's move on then. Have capital improvement next. 251.
Again, capital improvement fund, this is where our large projects and large equipment comes from. Buildings, all of our big assets come out of this fund. We have some ongoing projects that we're finishing up, the DPW expansion, water tower on Highway 100. The Johnson Controls project will be bidding out this fall. Pathway. Yeah, all the DOT projects, the school traffic light project, again, parks and trails. So we have a lot of ongoing 2024, 2023 projects, and so I think this year, or this budget, the anticipation was to start to put a slow halt on the amount of projects the city takes on. We do have a couple projects that the city is committed to, the 2025 projects, the Wisconsin DOT Lover's Lane from 60th to St. Martin's, and the Buttes Pathway. Those two projects are really big funding projects in 2025 that are going to require a lot of revenue. So when you look at sorry, I made the comment before everybody got here. I am dealing with a stomach issue and my not feeling. Anticipated a $2 million borrow to fund the two major projects. However, when I was putting this together, it must have been a late night because I did not take into account all the park impact fees that could be transferred over. So when I was putting this together and talking and thinking about it today, I realized that we probably don't need to borrow $2 million. We probably are looking at roughly $850,000, which could potentially be funded through the general fund or some other source instead of borrowing. That'll get us through to fund those two projects. And then also the lighting, curb and gutter, and those two DOT projects are the only ones that we anticipated in 2025. Any sanitary sewer projects or water projects are funded through special assessments. So you'll see that basically an in and an out. And then again, we do have a small portion of landfill siting in as well.
Speaking of impact fees, does the library impact fees that we still have, that be used for any of their ongoing project or any of that stuff?
So when I had talked with somebody last year about being able to use impact fees from the library to support the air chiller, it was under our assumption that we could. However, I reached out to Rupert Milkie, and they told me that they felt that was not an eligible expense and would not recommend that we did that. It's on new construction, and an air chiller could be a very discretionary item under state statutes as to what can apply library impact fees formally.
This is like the issue that we keep coming up against with park impact fees too. You can't just keep, yeah, exactly. You can't just keep building new and not having the ability to maintain it.
Exactly. I guess what's your definition of new? I mean, it may not be a new standalone building, but it's a new system that controls the interior climate. So part of it might be definitional, but yeah, it's great to say it's always for new expansion. But I mean, how do you expansion bring along your existing infrastructure as well?
I know that's something that I intended to reach out to Rupert Milkie on and explain to them that if your recommendation is to not use it on the air chiller, what other parts of these projects that we have going on or potentially could have in the future that we could use it for?
Right. Because a second library probably isn't in the unit.
No.
No, and that's the problem. I mean, even like with the fire department, you can't just impact fees to do a redevelopment of the existing, or like Ken Wendell with the park impact fees. It's needs a lot of upkeep, and unfortunately we can't just bulldoze it and put something new and like bam, done. All right.
Yeah, I recommend reading the most recent, I think it's 2020, the impact fee study. Obviously, especially for the library, the most common use of the library impact fees is to continue to pay back the debt from the library building. We have some deferred principal and interest that we do use library impact fees for. You'll see those transfers out of Fund 27, which is the impact fee fund. All of our debt service on Fire Station 3, I believe, transportation on one of the new roads, Drexel, and the police departments in the library building. All those buildings still have outstanding debt service payments, even though the debt is either completely already paid off, but we're just continuing to reimburse ourselves on an annual basis all that deferred principal and interest spent.
Exactly.
I don't remember any other library projects that are on the horizon that we continue to collect for. We're collecting at such a low amount of library impact fees to just continue to pay off that debt service, and then at that point we will stop collecting. impact fees
Yeah.
unless we had some project on the horizon.
Because it seems it gets to a point where self problem, you're collecting more impact fees, charging for the stuff, but if you don't have any eligible, or realistically any,
Nor do we have the funds to make up the difference to use
Match.
those.
right?
So that's I think almost the bigger issue with a lot of these other items. But and we need to have a restructure, and as Kelly and I and Danielle have talked, the restructuring of our impact fees, and should we be reducing greatly in one area, increasing in another area? But it's not just a quick. I mean, there's a process. But I think we're to that point where that process needs to be broached.
Yeah, because I mean, we're sort of creating our own issues now by collecting impact fees, in particular the parks, and have all of these pathway projects to pay for that with the park impact fees with like the least amount of impact, if you will, to our community, except that there's that maintenance piece that we continue to not plug into there. So we definitely need to do a new study.
Is something that I think was also going to be a conversation of putting that in this budget before it gets adopted. The one thing I just wanted to mention while we are on this, one of the documents that I put on your table, like I said, for those who weren't here, I didn't realize that these debt schedules were not in your mayor's recommended budget, so please add them under section 9. But the one pager, the one with the smaller writing, I just wanted to note on here, 2025, this is anticipating a $2 million borrow in 2025. Now, they did just pass new legislation that allows GO bonds to be obligated for 20 years. So, the other way, GO notes to be obligated for 20 years instead of 10 years. So that does help us for any of our future borrowings. We are able to expand those payments out and not have such hefty payments in a 10-year period versus 20-year period. So you'll see at the bottom, when we determine what our principal and interest payments are, the total city debt service for 2025 is $1,475,000. That less impact fee amount of $310,000, I just want to point it out there that yes, those are paying off the debt of the buildings that we are continuing or had continued to defer, and now we're using those to pay ourselves back, which allows our levy impact to be lower, and then in turn allows the levy impact on the citizens to be lower as well. So it's been at roughly $1.1 million over the last 5, 6, 7 years. So you'll see that slowly start to increase if we borrowed $2 million in 2025 to pay for these projects. However, like I said, now that we have that impact fee deferment that we can put over here, we don't have to borrow if we choose not to. Also, the impact to the debt service levy has lowered a little bit, which I wanted to speak about during the debt session, so I will remember. So just some suggestions. I think the two options are either keep the $2 million borrow in there and add some additional projects that the city is asking, or the department heads are asking to do, or cut the borrow and take some general fund money that is in complete excess, way over our policy anyways, that should be used for capital one-time needs, and just transfer that money over and save our levy for another year or two.
That's right.
Not that we don't have capital needs, but like I said, I think it's smart of us to start to slow down and finalize a lot of the projects that we have going on and get some of our departments more up to speed, and just seemed like the most logical thing. So.
Yeah, we're slowing the projects for sure. From a city-driven side of things. Obviously, developers they'll bring their own projects, but for city-driven, put hold on new stuff and try to get some of our existing projects finish line.
And we do still have a few more DOT projects that have already been committed to that will need to see through to 2027, 28. So we'll have to talk some funding for the future. These are the two main ones that, like, you can see the Hughes pathway, and that's just the design. So 2026, you'll see the construction cost of about $1.5 million. And then the 60th to St. Martin's, actually that increased. I forgot to mention that. So just last week, we got a more estimated number from the DOT. And what was initially supposed to be $1.265 million for the construction portion has increased 60th to St. Martin. So the new updated construction estimate plus a 10% contingency adds about $170,000.
That'd be a 10% cost share.
I believe that's our 20% cost share.
They're all 20.
And that's scheduled sometime later in the decade?
No, that's 2025. The design has already been completely done. This has been going on since 20.
Okay, that's a complete rebuild of the highway.
Yeah.
Well, you can't get part done in those corners. Comment, but that may be not relevant, but anyway.
Parks and Trail project, the first one, Cascade Trail design, we're pulling that from 25, correct? Or are we?
Not the design is ongoing, but yeah, we didn't move forward with construction of Cascade Trail in 2025. I did want to just see the
You said this was section 9?
Yep.
That page? Somewhere else. I was just going to make the comment. So without the $2 million borrowing, then our non-TIF borrowing is total about $6.5 million. Am I looking at that correctly? Total principal currently on the books?
Yes. No, it's 8.7.
But doesn't that?
That does not
Oh, I'm
include the
sorry.
2
I'm
million.
looking. Okay, I saw it. Million. Okay. So 8.5 is our existing,
Yes.
and that's all on a 10-year max life. Existing borrowing maximum that's allowed by the state.
Yes. The one thing I did want to note real quick, though, I don't know if you guys remember, and this is more for the council, that a few months ago it was brought forward the 60th to St. Martin's project was potentially going to be awarded a TAP grant, which would have saved the city over $1 million. And I just got word from the DOT last week that the city was not awarded that due to the issues with the required utility coordination process.
You mean the Pew pathway?
No, this was the 60th to St. Martin's project.
Due to what issue?
Because you coordinate. Apparently, yeah. But I just wanted to make you guys aware because I believe, and maybe this is more for Kelly and I believe we'll have to bring back to council. You guys signed the state-led agreements saying that if we were awarded the grant, this is what it would be. And so now that we weren't, I'm not sure if that has to come back or not, or if it just voids and goes back to the municipal So, but that's just why I wasn't sure if anybody would point out, like, I thought that we were supposed to get a grant. Why is this full amount in here? But yes, we weren't awarded the grant, so. That's what I thought, the council. But yeah, so unless anybody else has capital improvement, I think we've covered all of that. The street improvement fund is followed right after. So I think it's no secret that we have an issue with funding in our street improvement fund and that our roads are well overdue to be maintained and resurfaced and fixed up. So I don't believe that we have had a chance to receive the engineer's report yet.
We're still working on it.
So, which usually we would have, and that's okay because we have a certain amount of funding and that's what it is. So, last year we determined any funding above a certain amount of shared revenue was going to go to the street improvement fund. So you'll see that that's what the tax levy portion is. The way that it goes, you can't really allocate it one specific way. So this is our workaround. So $300,000 of general tax levy to support the roads. Transportation aids you'll see in there. I did get final numbers on transportation aids last week also. Kind of the joy of having this in October is I get a lot of finalized numbers in like September, the first week of October. So actually from what I projected versus what the actual number is, it went up an extra $16,000. So I just then increased the expense of the street improvement fund by $16,000 too. So landfill siting revenue, we have $530,000 in there, and then $44,000 in interest. And then again, like I said, the total street improvement allotted is $2.3 million, and then that's just going to increase by $16,000. Kelly, I
I
don't know.
heard the superintendent say that they're really probably at about max in terms of they can actually run it. Probably in good a place as any for right now.
They're maxed out, and when last year we made that adjustment, and that adjustment was like to help catch up a little bit more. And if we have to do a little more outsourcing, we have to. But again, you know, it's very, very concerning if you build a subdivision or you do anything that requires a new road. The decades that have to go by until you get another one is very, very concerning. We've got some roads now that haven't been touched since 1975 in District 6. And that's, you know, granted they're holding up kind of well, but that's unheard of just because of the lack of traffic in some of these subdivisions that just don't have the traffic that puts the weight on. But still, it's that was the mindset behind this, was to try to lessen that.
And I'm not a road expert, but I know just listening, you know, 100 years, every 100 years is the rate that we're at, and just hearing about how terrible Buttes, St. Martin's, you know, those roads are, and what the capacity is going to take to fix up those roads. Again, funding. I mean, I think last year's engineer report said $4 million to redo Buttes, and it was just, huh?
Agreeing with you.
Yeah, so it's just at what point do you just work on one road with the funding that you have, or do we continue to do 5, 6, 8 roads at a time? Kelly, I don't know if you wanted to touch on maybe what their anticipated plan is for 2025 at the moment.
At the moment, from our last department meeting, which was last Thursday, we are looking to get numbers and finalize pieces to put together the full package, and it looks like we're focusing on Drexel. That's pretty much where the funds will be able to work on the repairs on that street, but we don't have, it's going to call for a lot more than what we have, unfortunately. So it's pretty much looking like that one road, and
right.
I want to say that the areas that we were looking at was 35th to 51st, and 51st to
Well, John lives a little further west. I mean, I'm at the intersection of 43rd, but with the new freeway ramp, I mean, it is remarkable amount of westbound traffic that comes down that roadway. And you think Rawson right there, 4-lane, fully developed, mile away, would handle most of that. Doesn't seem to be the case. And then, well, of course, the high school as well. I mean, you know, I mean, so this time of year and season or whatever, but I mean, I was surprised just watching, you know, you sit there at rush hour and watch traffic come west off of Drexel. I mean,
I'm one of those.
took
So.
that. I know. I just took that way from the dentist where he came from. So I mean, and part of it's because Rawson's down to 1 lane
Correct.
in Oak Creek.
Yeah, I avoid Rawson right now because of that. And the other reason is, as they added more lights on Rawson, 35 on Drexel is still way faster than Rawson. They have too many lights on Rawson to flow the traffic. So,
Right.
so right now, I think that shifts your traffic
Right.
too.
well, and then, I mean, I find it interesting sometimes in the morning just watching traffic coming east out of Oak Creek. Now, they've got a lot of housing units over there by Drexel Town Square and so forth. You know, we've got Beetle Village and so forth too. If some of those people are commuting back downtown or whatever, taking that same, you know, route, but, you know, expand the freeway, it's good for business activity, you know, volume, but transportation runs, you know, economy many ways. So guess what? Give us a new road.
Right.
Yeah, and I just wanted to point out, it's in the audit document too, but we have almost 100 miles of road just in our municipality.
That's just our roads, not
Just
not all the county and state roads.
Not county and state, you're correct.
Oh.
And growing.
All right.
I don't have anything.
No, we're
Okay.
continuing to develop that. We're working with Rafe to make sure that we've got a.
Well, I think sometimes, you know, given the economy and where they are, if there's events and flows and whatever, I think municipalities have a unusual opportunity when many other organizations may be cutting back or have cash flow issues or whatever. To the extent that we know those dollars have to be spent and can move them around from maybe one accounting period to another, satisfy, you know, Danielle's of the world, but I mean, you're gonna spend that money anyway. It's out there, and there's opportunities with contractors, et cetera. And it makes sense to be opportunistic and look for those. Say, yeah, we've got 180 miles or whatever. Take some of that gas. Price. All right, next is
Facility development fund.
utility.
It's fairly simple. This is what we collect our special assessment for sanitary, sewer, and water. And so it's the deferred principal and interest. We start to collect those mostly on people that either are selling their home, is typically where that comes from. Interest, and then the transfer to water and sewer as those projects start to come about. I don't know if there's any anticipated projects for 2025, but it's in the budget so that if there is any unexpected sanitary sewer water projects that are special assessment eligible, that funding will. So that one's fairly simple. If you guys have any questions on that one. Just an in and an out. Next page, 266, the development impact fees. And we've touched over some of this briefly already, but again, we just collect impact fees. And then in tune, we pay out for projects based on eligibility. And at the moment, all we're doing is transferring for park impact fee eligible projects and then transferring for debt service payments of the buildings. In this case, the almost $1 million, again, is to support the 2 DOT projects. And the one thing I wanted to mention, if anybody noticed, I accidentally missed 0 under the revenue water impact fee. Should be 750,000, not 75,000. So I have that adjustment made. I'll just touch on why. You'll see I pretty much kept all of the impact fees the exact same as last year. That's due to a few extremely large projects on board for 2025 that are impact fee eligible, and I just don't know what that looks like yet. I have some conversations with the inspections department to get me some numbers on what the projected impact fee amounts are going to be for a couple of those large projects. So I anticipate these numbers being higher, but I just wanted to keep them conservative. Do you guys have any questions on those?
Anybody? All right.
I will provide an update, maybe on Wednesday, just a quick update on where we're at for park impact fees. I know probably 6-8 months ago I updated all the spreadsheets, and at that point we were okay until April of 2025. If we did not spend another impact fee dollar, we did not run the risk of rebating until April of 2025. However, with a couple of these projects now coming about, that will spend down some of the impact fees, and so I anticipate that projection going out even further. But
And with some of the MMSD projects or programs that they have, we have funding available to us, and one of them is essentially purchasing land in the city for hydraulic soil and leaving it as is. And I really want to explore that with our MMSD partners, and that's something that we could park impact fee and then have them pick up the remainder. They want it to be untouched, obviously, to keep it where the flooding and what have you does not continue to increase in terms of a problem. And I think that makes a lot of sense because we can purchase land, park impact fees, so have the additional expense offset by their funding program. I think it would be a huge benefit for the city.
And I don't know if that's been who handled or who would be the expert on this right now, but is it true? Because I heard I was going to mention this at the last ICC meeting. Are the impact fee structures changing at all for purchasing of new land? That let's say we go out and buy 100 acres for parkland, and we use park impact fees. Is it covering 50%, 60%? But then is the state regulating that possible change in that percentage that you've heard of?
I have not heard of that, but I believe it's 62% eligibility right now.
Okay, because I was just, we'll talk, this will be for a different time, but for a large chunk of land to sell to the city. I'm concerned if it's something that we want to bring quicker than later if a change comes in 25 or 26.
Well, we have funding available that we'll want to look at. Obviously MMSD has their funding requirements. A meeting with Jamie that kind of heads up that program.
Okay. I didn't want to bring that to council yet.
I can look into that and see if there's some with. Okay, so next is our TIDs. We can touch briefly on them. We have 5 active TIDs, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. TID 5, also known as The Rock, Ballpark Commons. Right now there is no projected development, so essentially the TID just collects increment and pays back debt. The property tax levy that is projected, I did just want to touch on this because there's been some conflictions and some confusion as to how tax increment is generated in the TID and when it gets generated. So that being said, every year, the assessors provide the Department of Revenue a municipal assessment report, and that's typically done in May. So just for process, if you guys didn't know, but that's done in May. The assessor has the ability to amend that report until October. In this case, ours will be amended because of the late assessments and Board of Review still not being and all of that. So when that report is generated to the Department of Revenue, if it's not amended by the time they finalize their statement of changes, that number is locked in. And so in this case, all of our TIDs, I shouldn't say that, TID 5, TID 6, and TID 8 had estimated values at what the assessor determined that value would be back in May. That did not change with the Department of Revenue. So they locked that number in and do their statement of changes, and then that's the number that we use to determine the tax increment for the year. In this case, TID 5, TID 6, and TID 8 assessments increased dramatically now that we have more finalized numbers. However, the tax increment is not changing. What happens is that statement of changes is locked in. Tax increment will be generated based on that for 2024. In 2025, the Department of Revenue will do a correction on their statement of changes to increase it based on whatever the difference was from the estimated amount that the assessors initially provided to what the amended is. Next year in 2025, the TIDs will all see a pretty large bump in their tax increment due to that adjustment. And then in 2026, it will go back to normal. So the problem with that is, and I just wanted to stress that here because I'm sure it will get brought up, is these large developer guarantees that we have with TID 5 and TID 6 are going to be looking at a large, we'll just call it a large bill for 2024 because there's nothing that we can do about the assessment change until it gets corrected in 2025. So they'll see a larger bill in 2024, see a smaller bill in 2025. Hopefully we won't have a bill in 2025, but if it is, it'll be smaller in 2025, and then it'll normalize in 2026. So the property tax levy is based on that statement of changes, which, like I said, is for TID 5, it's going to be roughly $1.3 million. That's based on a $17 mill rate. Again, that's projected. That's about a 2% decrease from last year, which was 17.5, I believe, for the TIDs. The property taxes, payment in lieu of taxes at $85,000 for TID 5. That's the pilot payment that they have on the stadium. The developer guarantee, that's again based on my projections of the assessment that is provided from the assessor back in May. They also, or not they, I should say the Department of Revenue did pass new legislation in 2024 that allowed for all personal property to be exempt. In that case, any TID that had any personal property in it became exempt. And the state is now giving out a aid payment to make up some of what was lost. And the thought process is the assessors are to increase value and include personal property in the values of all of real estate, commercial, industrial, everything now. So assessments will probably increase for the people that had personal property or developments that had personal property. You'll see that increase on the assessment side. And then the state is picking up a portion of that aid as well. So TID 5, TID 6, and TID 8 all have a small aid payment going forward. And it's an annual thing. It's not just one time. So
is there a ceiling for that, or is it based on the evaluation?
It's based on whatever the amount of exempt or whatever the amount of personal property was that was in the TID, whatever that amount is. There's some sort of formula that they give in aid, but there's no. It's whatever was exempt, whatever was taken away.
So there isn't a cap that's based on whatever the
It's a one-time, it's the same amount every single year. So for example, I'll use TID 5. I think TID 5 had about $5 million in personal property. That got taken off of the roll. The assessors will determine, I won't say they'll include it now in their assessments, but they'll do their adjustments. And then the Department of Revenue takes that $5 million every year and provides a percentage of an aid payment that we'll get.
Right. For example, it looks like 103,000 for.
It's 90,000 for that specific personal property exemption now, but every year we still got a small personal property or personal property aid. This is just additional. You'll also see that in the general fund too. So the city also gets an aid payment for all the personal property that was now exempt on the roll.
I was just reading something, and they were saying that the program was not very well worded. People weren't filling out the form or whatever, so it was positive generations to this.
And the big thing is the cities don't, right, the counties don't true up your personal property. So the cities are on the hook for every year constantly going out and sending letters to homeowners. I think us as a municipality, we have delinquent property taxes for people from 2007, 2008, and there's just no statute that allows us to do anything, no ramifications. We just have to keep trying to get that. We'll get it if a house sells, because all of that can be put on
Covered then,
yeah.
but we can't just add it to the property tax bill.
No. I wish, otherwise we would have done that and not had these outstanding delinquent taxes for 20 years. So we can still continue to collect on those.
Past.
Unfunded or low funded statements.
So again, TID 5, there's not a whole lot of costs associated with this, except
Danielle,
potentially
if I
some
can
legal fees.
interrupt for just a moment. Given the assessment issue, probably an expectation that these developers are going to ask for some kind of deferral of averaging over 2 years, potentially, of these underpayments. Or?
I mean, I guess, yeah, the questions come however they want. If they feel that they're being, I guess, slighted in a way this year, even though they know that it's going to be corrected next year, it's still, like I said, that large bill this year. Will the city defer some of it, make some sort of arrangements? I'm not sure, but I can assume that some might ask.
Right. It's have to have a pretty good indication of what the 2025 or the next year is, so you're not,
Like,
if you do make any concessions, that it's at or less than what the rebate is. Whatever.
we just run into the same issue the following year.
Right.
So trying to,
And we caution against that just because then you've got the different developers saying, well, this developer got it, why am I not getting it? And I think it's better to have that consistent position that we're not going to do that and let the roles play out as they are.
right, there's not much we can do at this point, and it's unfortunate, but
Right.
like I said, it will get corrected, so
I guess they always have a choice to make on what their payment options may or may not be also. And, revised. All right.
So, again, just real quick, TID 5, there's really no anticipated costs associated except some allocated payroll costs. Legal services, we do that in all of them. Again, there's no development, so we didn't really anticipate any development expenditures. And then we can move on to TID 6. This is kind of the same issue as far as developers go. oh, I'm sorry, I guess we'll just go to TID 7. I didn't realize that TID 7. So TID 5 and TID 7, because it's an overlay, there is no developer guarantee in TID 7. The projected increment is $735,000. We're still collecting high interest on the lump sum that we received from the sale of Velo Village, so having that fund balance sitting there is generating a significant amount of interest income. The only transfers is to cover the debt service that we have on the one bond, no development, and audit services. So again, this one's a pretty straightforward. Lastly, the developer incentive, we do have that MRO of $14.5 million that we will continue to pay on an annual basis. That comes from available increment, also from the mortgage repayment. However, it's been brought to attention to the council and the developer that at the rate of increments and how it's slowly declined over the years, it looks like we may run into an issue of fully paying out the obligation of the MRO. But that's further and further down the road. So we will continue to pay the developer incentive annually. So that's at $816,000. You'll see that one has a healthy fund balance still of $6.5 million. Page 292 is TID 6. That's got some development going on, so you'll see some higher expenditure costs as far as allocation, payroll, legal services. But that one has $420,000 in property tax projections, and then also that one has 3 developer guarantees. So those are laid out in that $326,000 projected. Again, hopefully that will decrease next year when that correction is made. This is just a question maybe for you, Mayor. Do you know of what development's going on in TID 6 right now? Isn't there a subdivision?
There's nice.
Rise.
Or Rise.
Rise is
Rise is nice though, so that
Right.
counts.
Very close. Yeah.
You've got just east of the Irish Cottage, there's 79 houses total in that group.
Okay.
And they're about at the maybe 60, okay? And there's going to be another one proposed just south of the cottage, another residential piece that they're going to be coming to this year yet. And as far as that, there's another commercial component that's south of the Irish Cottage that is still open, but they're trying to determine whether that would be, if they would come to council for like a quick trip or something like that there, just for that little area. But, other than that, that's pretty much where we are at with the development for that area.
Have we heard anything about Verizon or Copart?
Just said Verizon paid their bill, correct?
Yeah, so the developers, yes, they've all paid their bills. I just
Right.
wasn't sure if there was any talk about actually getting those businesses.
No one has come forth with anything there at all. I mean, of all the calls and everything I'm getting, but nothing from there. Now, that doesn't mean that Bear Development doesn't have more of an inside scoop on something,
Right.
but Dan, who we normally deal with, hasn't said anything other than this last piece when he was at Plan Committee.
So then they still see the developer payments. But other than that, yeah, that's TID 6. TID 8. General property tax of about $1.5 million. Also a TID that had a large portion of personal property in it, so the aid payment on that is $100,000. I only have one debt issue for TID 8, which was to cover South Hickory Street, which is now complete. So we're just paying off the debt on that. I know we have some future development in TID 8. which is why I anticipated some higher expenditure costs. Again, payroll allocations for all the hard work our city does, legal fees, professional services like financial advisor. I think Esprit Friedman has done some financial analysis for us to date, so I'll continue to work with those. There isn't any projected large projects that the city is on the hook for. I know the only one is Elm Road, but that one has not been pushed forward. I think we're waiting for some future development that will help potentially fund that project, about a $7.5 million project. So that's kind of been in the project plan, but it's on hold until some of that further development comes on and we start receiving the increment. So that is it for TID 8. And then TID 9 is the new Karma Labs TID. We did borrow the roughly $2 million in 2024 to fund the utilities, sewer, sidewalk, and some, I think, deceleration and acceleration lanes for that project. We are paying that out. Other than that, I haven't heard of any future development for TID 9, so I didn't anticipate any expenditures other than some payroll costs and professional services. And then page 303 is just the debt component, so that's the next year is when we pay the first interest. The last couple pages are just your debt schedules for the TID. You guys can look at those. Our TID debt makes up a large portion of our GO debt, so luckily that's typically funded through tax increment and or debt guarantee. Try and keep those in. So $43 million in outstanding TID debt that we have. If you guys have any questions on the TIDs, I'd be happy to answer those.
So in our engineering department meeting, one of the things that I had thrown out there is that it would be ideal for us to start planning projects and working with developers and what have you with better foresight. And ultimately that means, like, for example, that TID 9 is a great example. There are corners that are going to be impacted by the new road over there, but we don't actually have anything in the pipeline for the remainder of the TID, which at some point that road's probably going to get done before we end up putting anything else in the TID, and then we have to pull up a road potentially. So just trying to be more aware of those things and doing a better job of planning, kind of not put the cart before the horse.
I think that the overall concern that I think everybody has when you look at the TIDs is the amount of tax increment that you're getting really big development, but your costs for services are not increasing at all. The general fund is getting no funding for your police, fire, library, anything else to fully support those entities for 20 to 27 years. And so it's just really, yes. So it's just really important that when we continue to work on TIDs, move forward with development, we do take the consideration into play all those services that are being impacted by adding on all of that.
Thank you for recognizing that.
Yeah.
We start getting calls as soon as the shovel goes in.
And I try to speak to that all the time because you see what the benefit of having a TID does to your community and the ability to be able to put new infrastructure in, but again, what it does to your entire municipality as a whole from a cost and delivery of services standpoint, it really puts a strain on that. And so maybe looking at a different way, kind of out of the box, on how can we incorporate some sort of financial impact onto these developers, whether it be, who did we talk to about, wanted to say there was some sort of I don't want to say an impact fee, but there's something that I think you can also put on to developers that is like in lieu of, we don't want your impact fee money, but we do want something that is going to help deliver these services to you
And we can
for
earmark
that,
it.
for that expected life of the TID. So just kind of coming up with different ways that we can make sure that our cost of services are still being, yeah.
And that we're not on the hook
Yeah.
10, 20 now.
Payment in lieu of.
Like a pilot.
So just a thought.
Well, and I think too, one of the conversations I keep having with the engineering department in particular is that we need to do a better job of planning where new development goes, because there is infrastructure we could be pushing out further instead of trying to have like a development and then running infrastructure out there that costs dramatically more. So just kind of trying to be aware of, again, this goes back to that strategic planning that I want. And there's a reason for it, because it will guide all the decisions that he makes moving forward.
You're doing development infrastructure where we already have utilities, for example, or we already have the roads and
Right.
sidewalks.
We're doing redevelopment instead of just out of the blue, nothing's there, and now we have to take everything there, and also it's not surrounded by anything. I mean, we do have those opportunities throughout the city that I think we can just be more mindful of as we move forward with development projects.
When we talk about that redevelopment component that we're really not experiencing much of, only a little bit, but there's models at Cudahy and West Dallas that are literally everything is a redevelopment, and how they've shifted focus on funding and shifted focus on how to plan for those now redeveloped long-term commitments. So it's nice that you got somebody else kind of forging forward that we can learn from, but those are two communities right now that are literally redeveloping everything, because it's like it's gone 100 years industrial, now it's going to go this way forward. So it's kind of interesting.
All right.
Good job, Danielle.
I am going to also ask that the self-insurance fund be moved Wednesday. There's just been some ongoing communication that needs to be finalized, and I've got the HR coordinator or director Dana looking into some things, so I'll have more information on that finalization on Wednesday. So,
Okay.
debt, which is section 9. The one we all love the most. Our outstanding debt for 2025 is about $64 million. Had a chance to read through this. Again, if we take out that $2 million borrow and push it maybe into 2026 or 2027 to take on some capital need, that will lower our levy a little bit more. Here we have continued to maintain at least 70% of outstanding debt due within 10 years. Right now we're at 79%, and it actually just increases over the years because we just continue to pay down our outstanding debt. We still maintain the AA2 rating. Really don't have much unless you guys have any questions. Like I said, if we don't take out that borrow, our total outstanding debt is $69 million at 2024, and that's water, sewer. That also includes the Clean Water Fund loan that we have. Yeah, unless you guys have questions. That piece, I did provide you those. Kelly, here's a copy for you.
Thank you.
See what the next 10 years look like from a debt levy perspective. I think the other thing to consider, and I don't remember if it's in the description or not, is the cost of construction, cost of capital needs, and how much it's increasing. I know years ago it was kind of, not by policy, but put in place where we were going to borrow every 2 years around $2 million to take on capital. But I think from a perspective of cost, I think it's important that maybe we start having the conversation of, do we increase more and do it less frequently, or do we increase every 2 years the amount that we're going to borrow, and what that looks like from a debt perspective? Because I think getting to be, it's clear that $2 million is
Doesn't go
two
far.
projects for us for 2025. So, and not all of them are impact fee eligible. So, as you can see, we weren't able to do anything for any of our departments other than roads this year due to the funding. So, just seeing what those needs are and how much it costs to provide those, I think we should start really looking at from a debt perspective. Like I said, if we want to increase that to, we'll say $3 million every 2 years, or if we want to do one lump sum and do, we'll just say, I think 2023 was anticipated a $6 million borrow. Do a lot of stuff 1 year and then not borrow again for 5 years. So I think we need to just start looking at that and start bringing some debt schedules forward.
I'm assuming part of that too came from when interest rates had been just stuck for a long time and everything was quote unquote cheap. You get into that mindset when things change and you have inflation and all other things.
And it's been noted too that I keep getting all the economic updates that inflation is starting to decline a little bit, but I think as a city we've lacked in keeping up with that. So now we're kind of just getting hit, even though it's declining. Our costs aren't declining and our needs aren't declining. So, and with that, we won't have the luxury of having that additional interest income in the next couple of years like we have been kind of banking on these last 2 years, 3 years. So I don't have anything else on that unless you guys have a question.
Thank you.
Well done.
And then last, just again, the tax levy and rates, I don't think I can really provide any update at this point other than the ones that I have provided. To date, I know obviously you can see the assessment roll out there. I'm waiting on the assessors to provide me the assessment roll so that I can start doing some more projections from my end. I'll have a better number once I get those. Obviously, it won't be final until board of review is complete and all of the statement of assessments has been filed, but I was supposed to get the roll by the end of the day today, and I will have a chance to look through it over the next couple of days and see what the impact looks like.
I got my assessment today.
You got your notice. I've already received some emails, so.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm embracing of the $11,000.
I'm 17 something.
$11,000.
Well, one of the things that had been noted to me in a side conversation following the board of review that was, obviously, to plan for future meetings is that it appears that the land that everybody is on was not also being taken into consideration when.
My land went up big time.
Yeah, mine almost doubled.
It should have always been.
Exactly.
Because
And
you
it
could have
wasn't
sold that
being-
land for what it shows now, and my land was still what it was when I bought it 25 years ago, and 3 years after I bought it, I could have sold it probably for double. So, yeah.
Yeah. So that is something that was told to me last week, is that the land value had not been increased for probably ever, potentially. I'm not exactly sure, but so that's where you see some of those big increases. I know, like I said, my land value went up almost double.
Yeah, mine doubled. I know over. Yeah, probably close to double. Yeah.
And I just wanted to reiterate real quick that, our levy can only be increased by net new construction and debt service. So that being said, our 1.58 That new construction percentage didn't really give us much a cushion this year. It gave us $158,000 to spread out amongst everybody. So coming up with some very strategic ways on how we maintain a levy and a low tax rate and still be able to provide all of the needs that we have has been challenging. So I promise I continue to work every day on this, and with the updates as I get them, I will provide them in these meetings. And if there's anything outstanding on Wednesday, I'll just say this. My concern is because of how much information we still don't have. I'm not sure what kind of recommendations on Wednesday. So I wanted to discuss that either today or Wednesday, whether it's after we finalize everything, if we decide to make the recommendations on Wednesday, or if we wait until the next finance. We're just running on a really tight schedule on getting that budget adopted. How that looks. So again, I'll keep working these next days to have some more finalized information for you guys. And obviously, I take everything that is talked about in here and plug it in, and tweak around where I can, keep things balanced. But at least the general fund is.
John, you got a question?
Originally, we had a meeting scheduled for Thursday as well, or it was still.
I think it was always 7, 9, and we were referring to it as Tuesday, Thursday because of the prior week. Because I thought we had Tuesday, Thursday, and then what's
on my thing?
I think it has always
Next
been
meeting
7
is Wednesday,
and 9.
right?
Yeah, October 9th. Yep.
So we're not meeting on the 10th?
No.
I think that
I
might
had
have
the
been a
10th too.
that might have been a contingency.
Yeah, I agree.
I think there was an ask of what's available.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, I remember that. Yes, I gave like 6 or 7 days, and I said, when can everybody? Yes. So
That was
it's
a rain date, John.
You can come here. That's fine.
Hopefully it's not raining in here.
Yeah. Right.
That's a bad week, tax week. Taxes are due 10/15.
I know. I still need to file them. Okay. So yes. So we'll.
Oh, that's good.
Jeez.
Well, apparently you just.
No, it's a refund, but I just had a lot of stuff going on. So yeah, so we'll finish this on Wednesday, and then I believe the next meeting after that is still October 22nd. So
Well, I think let's continue that discussion on Wednesday, and we can get what would our typical regular meeting date be? Or excuse me, October. I don't have it.
October 22nd.
22nd.
Again, that's still 1, 2, 3 weeks before the budget is finalized, but
after board of review, right?
no, isn't board review the 16th? Or no, it's November.
No, it's
now.
November 20th.
It's on our little assessment sheet here.
I knew it was in November.
That was the concern. Was we're gonna have to adopt a budget.
That was fine.
Correct. We'll have to do it with the most updated assessment numbers, and I can tweak it a little bit after each board of review or open book meeting, but it's going to be the most information that we have to determine a budget at that point. And then if the levy or if anything after that, like I said, the budget in December.
It says here, board of review November 20th at 6 p.m.
Yep.
This was on my assessment.
I'm sure no one's gonna show.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously going to be things open book before in full swing now, and I'm sure they will be having a lot of meetings between now and then.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Oh, yeah.
they were really handed quite a unique cluster of issues that they are working very hard to fix. Hard and quick.
Okay. So
Anything else that the group has?
Sure.
Motion to adjourn. Second. Have a second. Further discussion? Hearing none. In favor?
All right.
Motion carries. Thank you again.
Thank you.